Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, I think everyone is ready. So I'd like to start with a prayer to Ganpati. Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Kritunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha. Nirvighnam Kuru me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. All right, good morning, everyone. We will talk about the mind and the doshas and how the mind can affect the body and affect our health. If you have questions, please type them in the chat box. Monica G is here. Dr. Monica will help answer the questions. Unfortunately, the way I guess the Mac is set up, I can't see the chat window at the same time as I used to be able to, I think, on WebEx. But that's okay. She's here, so I'm happy. So we talked about the Bhagavad Gita last weekend, and we talked about the scenario with Krishna as the charioteer and Arjuna. In the back, you can see, I don't know if you can see my pointer, there's Krishna and there's Arjuna, and they're in their chariot and they are fighting the war of the Mahabharata in a field called Kurukshetra, which actually still exists in northern India, and they're still finding artifacts from the war, archaeologists. And symbolically, what this represents, this scene, is that the chariot is our body. The chariot is our body. And the person who owns that rath or chariot is the Atman, or the soul. The driver, or the Sarathi, the charioteer of this vessel that we inhabit, this body, or of this chariot, is Buddhi, which is the intellect. The chabuk is the whip here. That's the mind. It has control over the horses, which are the indriyas, or the sense organs. 5 horses, I think there are 4 here in this particular picture, but 5 sense organs, 5 indriyas, right? The mind, which controls the horses with the whip. Then the intelligence, or buddhi, or intellect, which controls the mind, all housed within the body, which is the charioteer, and the Atman is the soul. Okay? So let's talk about Vata dosha, mind and doshas. We'll go through each dosha one by one. So Vayu, or Vata, it governs all the movements of the body and the mind. We know that we talked about Vata and its subdoshas earlier. So this is going to be a review. Vata is the controller and motivator of the mind. It restrains and impels mental activities as well. So Vata subdoshas related to the mind are prana, udana, vyana, and apana. So let's go through each of these one by one and talk about how these subdoshas are related to the mind. So prana, which is in the head, what does it do? It helps expectoration, so coughing up, spitting out, inspiration, ingestion, swallowing of food. And here you see words like kshavatu, which is even things like sneezing, Udgara, which is exclaiming. All of these things prana uh, facilitates. And that's what it does at the level of the body. At the level of the mind, it controls all the senses, which are the indriyas. It controls and governs the mind. It forms the link between the body and the mind. It directs the intelligence or the intellect, the buddhi. And it promotes all normal mental activities. So you probably see this buddhi, and it reminds you of Buddha or Buddha. And so they're all related. Buddha, Bodh, all of bodhisattva, all of those are related to a common stem word, root word in Sanskrit. So buddhi is the word for intellect. Okay? Udana resides in the chest. It's related to, let me go back to make sure I'm not missing anything. Udana resides in the chest. It is related with speech, strength, thyroid, particularly because the udana is also comes up into the throat, also with expressing yourself through speech. Sometimes, a lot of times, people who have udana that is blocked are not good at expressing themselves, or they may have thyroid issues. Energy and inspiration, as well as facial expression. So udana comes out, up and out is kind of the action of udana. So it helps in expressing emotions. It is responsible for memory, recall, and supports the mind. And again, all of these pranas and vayu and its subdoshas, they're all linked. So it's not, they work together. Vyana is situated in the heart. It is the force behind the cardiovascular system. It's related to the contraction and relaxation of the heart, right? The filling of the ventricles and the atria, and the squeezing where the heart pushes out the blood that filled up into it, right? Because it's a pump. It's responsible for all movements, circulation. It nourishes the mind. It imparts speed to thoughts and actions. And then Apana is located in the pelvic region. It is related with the excretion of waste products. Also, anything that comes out of the lower apertures is propelled or expelled rather by apana. So urination, defecation, ejaculation, menstruation, the delivery of the fetus and the placenta, all of that outward is apana. Mind, well, it's not related to the mind directly, but an imbalance in apana can cause blockage of emotions. If apana moves, doesn't move properly, it doesn't move out and starts moving upwards, urdhva or tiryaka, it starts moving in every which way, it can cause an imbalance if it's not going the way it should. Pitta. Pitta is responsible for digestion, the luster of the body, the warmth of the body. So you have here words like, ruchi, which is your likes and dislikes, prabha, which is luster, medhadi, shaurya, so bravery, etc. Subdoshas of pitta, sadhaka pitta, it's located within the heart. Sadhak pitta helps in accomplishing intellectual things such as grasping, memorizing, decision making. It gives you courage, right? Vira, here it says shaurya. emotional intelligence. It supports spiritual, intellectual intelligence as well. So without sadhaka pitta, IQ is just dry knowledge. It's just facts. It's, like you're a robot. You just have a series of facts and data stored, but you're not giving it that extra touch, that intellectual, that emotional intelligence. You're not giving it. It's IQ without EQ. So it makes you just dry without sadhaka pitta. Kapha nourishes the body. As we know, kapha is soft, right? Water and earth, the two mahabhutas together, gives you this kind of soft substance that nourishes the body. It's responsible for correct retention of knowledge because it has that cohesive property to hold on to things. So it helps you hold on to that knowledge. It gives moisture, it gives softness to the indriyas, the joints, and the body. Avalambaka kapha is situated in the heart. It gives nourishment to the heart, to the hridya, through the pericardium, which is a sac that surrounds the heart, filled with fluid, and it gives that heart lubrication because the heart has been pumping since our embryonic days and pumps till our last breath, and may even pump if you donate that heart to someone else. So it's a hardworking organ, and so it needs support, and that's what the pericardium does, is one of the supporting structures. And the pleura, similarly, the pleura around the lungs give the lungs lubrication and nourishment and help facilitate the expansion and contraction of the lungs, the easy movement of the lungs. It's gliding, up and down within the body cavities. So the mind, Avalambaka kapha gives the mind the properties of forgiveness, tolerance, stability, love. Darpa kapha gives nourishment to the head, and in the mind it supports the sense organs, the indriyas. Okay? Then you have mental disorders versus physical disorders on this slide. Let's talk about physical. Sharira vyadhi. Sharira is body. Vyadhi is disease or disorder. These are diseases due to the imbalance of the three doshas exhibiting physical signs and symptoms, okay? Such as amla pitta, which is acidity, kasa, which is cough. So these are disorders on the physical level. On the mental level, you have diseases that are caused because of an imbalance of the gunas. Okay, the three gunas, rajas, sattva, and tamas. When tamas and rajas, when they are aggravated, this affects the mind. So sometimes when you read in English rajas and then you say tamo guna, don't let that confuse you. Sometimes you'll see rajoguna and tamas. This T-A-M-O sound is because of a Sanskrit grammatical rule, which is beyond the scope of this lecture, so called sandhi. So sometimes you'll see it transliterated in English as tamo guna. Don't let that confuse you. That's tamas. Similarly, rajoguna is rajas guna. Okay? Just a side note, in case you're wondering. So when rajas and tamas are aggravated, you have mental, psychiatric, psychological diseases such as psychosis, delusion, paranoia, even eating disorders. So let's talk about the Bhagavad Gita. Let's take 2 shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. So chapter 1 we talked about chapter 1 where Arjuna, it's called the dejection of Arjuna or the depression. Basically, he has a panic attack and he slumps in his chariot and he says, I'm not going to fight. This is ridiculous. yes, I wanted the fight earlier, but now that we're actually here on the battlefield and I'm looking around and it's reality and I see my loved ones fighting on the opposite army and I have to kill these guys. I mean, these are people who I deeply love. It's not worth it. I'm not going to do this. I don't want the kingdom. I don't want any glory. I don't want riches. I don't care. I'm not going to fight. This is ridiculous. And he sits down. And so Krishna has to get him to stand up and get him to fight the fight. And he employs, Krishna is the ultimate therapist and psychologist and friend and teacher and parent and everything. He uses every every type of strategy to get Arjuna up and have him see the light. And so I think what's really cool about the Bhagavad Gita is that all of us are different. Some of us like tough love. Some of us like some hand holding. Some of us like logic. Some of us like emotion. And so there's a chapter in the Bhagavad Gita that can appeal to each one of us. So anyway, it's for all of humanity to enjoy. So chapter 2, verse 62 says, Dhyato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangas Teshu Pajayate. I'm so sorry. Dhyato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangas Teshu Pajayate. I can't read the English. I'm going to actually read the Sanskrit because the English is tripping me up. Let me find the Devanagari here in my Gita, here on my table. Dhyato Vishyam Pumsaha Sangas Teshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Bijayate. This is a famous shloka, especially the second line. Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Bijayate. It's become one of those idioms in speech that if you just quote in normal day-to-day speech, it's part of the language. For a man who dwells on the objects of the senses, attachment to them is created, is born. And then from attachment, you have desire. Desire is born, and from desire, anger is born. Srila Swami Prabhupada, in his translation, says, while contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment for them. From such attachment, lust develops, and from lust arises anger. So this could be, well, we'll give an example after this. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha. Smriti, okay. Sorry, Monica G, it's the, I'm trying. Okay. Because the sub Smriti Bhramsad, I'm going to look at and see, it's a Sha in Devanagari. Okay, Smriti Bhramsad, Buddhinasho, Buddhinashat Pranashyati. See, if you look at the English, this S looks like an S, but it's really a Sha. Same here, so I need to not look at the English. Note to self. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha. Smriti Bhramshat, Buddhinasho, Buddhinashat, Pranashyati. So from anger, Prabhupada translates, from anger you have delusion, and from delusion you have bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one again falls into the material pool. So from anger you have delusion, okay? From delusion, you have the loss of memory. And then from the loss of memory, you have destruction of that discriminatory power. And once that is gone, you're lost. You have nothing to guide you. So a lot of times the example people give is when you become, let's say an extreme example is you try drugs for the first time, and then you start to like drugs. You go against your best wishes inside and you go ahead and try drugs. And then you start liking them, and then you start developing an attachment to them. And then you do anything in your power, whether it tears apart your family, whether it ruins your finances, whether it destroys your job, your personal life, everything, because you don't have a clear sense of thinking. You don't have that discriminatory power of what is right and what is wrong. You have this intense, blinding desire for that drug. And if you can't get the drug, what happens? You become angry. You become destructive. You start, stealing anything to get that what you want. You start start committing crimes to get money to pay for those drugs. You start cutting ties. You start deceiving people. Again, an extreme example of what can happen when you sort of lose your mind, when you get attached to an outcome, you get attached to a something, anything, fill in the blanks. And in order to get it, you won't stop at anything. You will do anything, and you become crazy for that. And you're a lot of times we all know someone who was a perfectly normal functioning person, and then they spiral out of control. They become a different person when they become an alcoholic. It's sad. It's actually heartbreaking, because when you see them, you know that's not really who they are. You know that they have fallen again into that material pool. Buddhi nasha has happened. Their intelligence has been destroyed. Buddhi nasha means destruction of buddhi. And a lot of successful people, this is their downfall. Alcohol, money, etc., lusty activities. And so it's sad to see them kind of be consumed by their senses, their sense organs, and the object of the senses. That's what happens. They become obsessed, and then they lose their buddhi. And it's a very sad sight to witness. The Dhaneshwari, which is a commentary of the Bhagavad Gita written by Sant Dhaneshwar hundreds of years ago, gives some examples in his commentary. And he says, if a person dwells on sense objects in his mind, then attachment will arise. Within detachment, in attachment, there is the image of desire. Where there is desire, anger has first been present, and in anger there has been delusion. When delusion appears, memory will be lost. That is the smriti bhrangsha right here. Memory will be lost, or bewilderment of memory. Just as a flame is extinguished by a gust of wind, and then blinded by ignorance, a person loses everything, and the pure reason in his mind is confused. Just as at sunset the night envelops the light of the sun, so is a person's condition when his memory fails. When a blind man has to run, he rushes pitifully here and there. In the same way, pure wisdom becomes bewildered, O Arjuna. When memory is confused, reason is entirely defeated, and all knowledge is destroyed. Just as the body is reduced to a wretched condition when consciousness fails, so is the state of a person who loses his reason. Listen, O Arjuna, just as a spark set to fuel bursts into flame and could set fire to the three worlds, similarly, thinking about sense objects, even unwittingly, leads to great loss. Okay, I think so. That's pretty clear, right? All right, let's move along. Let's see. We have to get through this quickly. We don't have much time. So causative factors for manas roga, what are these factors that can destroy the mental equilibrium? You have pradnya paradha, which is kind of literally translated as crimes or offenses against your own wisdom. So not listening to the cues of your body. Asatmya indriya sanyoga, so lack of proper association or improper association of the sense organs with their objects. So, and this could be less contact of sense organs with objects, more contact, excessive contact, or incorrect contact. So we talked about this much earlier for example, I'll give you an example of improper or excessive contact of sense organs with object would be like listening to loud music. So your ears, the sense organ, the indriya, is being associated with the object, which is music, in an excessive fashion or incorrect fashion, so through loud volume. So that causes damage to the ear, and it can also lead to mental imbalance. So that's just one example. There's so many. Then there's parinama. There's results of previous karma. Our karma follows us from life to life. Also, the karma we've committed in this life. A lot of times we see bad things happening to good people, right? And often it seems that way. It seems like the bad people get away with things, but their day will come, because karma is mathematical. It's thermodynamically sound. Every action results in an opposite reaction. We may not see it in this birth. We might see it in the next birth, because energy is indestructible, right? And we are indestructible. So even though we shed bodies, we remain ourselves throughout life and death. So sometimes we see karma from previous lives in this life, because we were still us in that last life, even though we look different now. So that's why karma is confusing, and karma is not so simple. It's very complex. Even Sri Krishna himself says that in the Gita. The ways of karma are inscrutable. Ashuchi, impurity, not keeping clean, poor hygiene. Then there's improper selection of dharma, which are our duties. Artha, wealth, kama, desires. So the four purushartha: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. If we don't follow those proper channels in order to live our life in a righteous way, then again, this upsets the mental balance. And we talked about dharma, artha, kama, moksha, so I'm not going to talk about it right now. Then there's consumption of rotten, stale food. Again, we know that, food that's poorly processed or over-processed. Then lack of sleep, of course, that's a big one. The inability to refrain from mental urges. So there's some suppressible urges, or urges that should be suppressed that we're not suppressing, right? So that is, again, the next point is goes into the next slide. So if these urges, and there's a separate talk on suppressible urges. So we'll talk about that at a different point. I think, I don't know if your batch has already had that lecture, but if these urges are not suppressed, they become causative factors or hetus for future mental imbalance. So greed, lobha, grief, shoka, anger, krodha, excessive pride, mana, shamelessness, nirlajjata, jealousy, irsha, fear, bhaya, infatuation, moha, hatred, dvesha, okay? And then excessive attachment. So all of these things, if we don't control them, yes, we all have all of these emotions at some point in our life, and that's okay. We're human. We're human. These are animal instincts and emotions. They're primitive. They come up as a survival mechanism, right? To preserve the organism, whether you're a dog or a person. But what separates us from the animals is that we take these negative emotions and we can contemplate, we can see how they can harm us in the long run. And we have the power, the mental ability, we have the buddhi, the intellect, to suppress them, and not suppress them in an unhealthy fashion, to let them pass, recognize them, and realize that we are above them. We can overcome them, okay? So that's what I mean by suppression, not artificially suppressing them, because if you're artificially suppressing them, in a way, you're still obsessing over them. So it's more sophisticated than that. So mental disorders that can manifest as a result from not suppressing these urges. You can have, and again, some of these are karmic, some of these are manifest in you from a previous birth or karma that has followed you, or, you know, again, things that you have done wrong as far as your diet or lifestyle or whatever, all the things we've talked about. What can result is mental disorders from all of those imbalances. So unmada, apasma, so epilepsy, for example, paranoia, you know, hallucinations, delusions, depressions, you know, schizophrenia, psychosis, all of these things. Nidra nasha means, here Nidra nasha is a hetu because it means the destruction of sleep. Literally, nasha means destruction. Nidra is sleep. The Nidra nasha is poor sleep, so it becomes a causative factor, hetu. And then it also becomes a vyadhi, it becomes a disease, it becomes insomnia. So, and it becomes cyclical. If you don't sleep well, it causes more insomnia, right? Because it causes you to sleep then during the daytime, and then you're up at night when you should be asleep. It just completely throws off your sleep pattern. So vibhrama, hallucinations, brahma, illusions, depression, etc., manovikshipti, all of these things can happen. Okay? Oh, wow, that was the last slide. I finished 5 minutes early. Okay, I'm going to see if there's any questions. Oh, my screen went blank. Oh, no. Okay. And I have no idea what the discussion is. Did anyone have any questions? And Monica G, was everything okay? And if there aren't any questions, I'm going to mute myself. Okay, I don't see any questions. Oh, here we go. Samana Vata in mind. Tatiana, yes. So yes, you're correct. It is. It can be related. There are neurons in the intestines. Like we say, we have a gut feeling. Absolutely, that gut feeling is literally that intelligence. So yes, you could look at it that way. But again, so this presentation, like Monica Ji is talking about, is from an Ayurvedic perspective. So yes, you could put that modern interpretation on it, but we're just looking at the. You're not incorrect, but we're looking at the actual shlokas from the Ayurvedic perspective. And well, like I'm just looking at Monica G's response of dosha gati. Yes, so we talk about the doshas becoming tiryaka, becoming urdhva, becoming adhogati. We talked about the movement of doshas. So yes. So right, Apana is mentioned in the presentation again, but as Monica G clarifies, it's not directly connected to the mind unless it moves in a different way. So I would think the same thing with Samana. If it moves in an incorrect fashion, it's going to cause become a hetu. Okay, but you're not incorrect that way. Okay, hope that makes sense. Thank you, Monica G. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great day. Have a good weekend too. I think that was it. Monica G, are you there?